way before the airport, this was just open lands of sands and the odd path roaming around the area, like one routed from Division Lane on the east side of the area that ran across towards Star Gate. The arrival of the railway cut one of the walkways in half in 1863, with a station to the south called St Anne's on Sea, and later, about 1867, a halt was installed, originally called Stony Hill Railway Halt, just a few hundred yards north, serving the far southern extremities of Blackpool.
I just hope their stories will still be told.
And this line was built by the Blackpool and Lytham Railway, a local smaller company, unlike its bigger rival, the Preston and Wyre Joint Railway, that owned and ran trains to Fleetwood, Blackpool Talbot Road and to Lytham's first station terminus, where the fire station is today. This line's station terminus was just a bit further south into the town of Lytham, where the station still remains today. It's now a pub. Lytham was also served once by trams along Clifton Road, but that was out its problems, especially with the local sands. Celebrated seasonal local rail photographer and historian, whose content has been in many books, Peter Fitton takes us back to a time once forgotten.
Well, Squires Gate, was there a platform there in 1863 when they opened the line? I don't know. I don't know, but there was certainly a bridge, a very narrow road bridge on Squires Gate Lane, and they had trams on it. So the trams, the gas trams started in 1897 from Lytham to Blackpool, and they went to what we call Star Gate and turned right over that bridge. But it was so narrow that the tram tracks couldn't be kept normal. They had to bring them right close, and two trams couldn't stop, so on the top of the bridge they were too narrow. There was that bridge, but that in the middle 1920s was rebuilt, and that would be done when they built the modern station at Squires Gate. I do have one or two pictures I've inherited, I'm sure, where there was no station there. I'm sure there's a picture somewhere I've seen where, but not just a tram picture, a train picture, where it was the old bridge. But middle 1920s, a lot of money was spent around here, like St Anne's station got rebuilt, didn't it? No, Ansdell and Lytham, they were already there, but Squires Gate, a very boring place with two platforms and the awnings and the signal box at the end and some sidings. I do remember the sidings because occasionally they stored old wooden coal wagons there, what we call 7-plank wagons and 5-plank wagons. That's the number of planks on top of each other. In the war they built the Wellington bombers at Squires Gate, so the railway was connected, and some of the track is still there if you go in and have a look. Where the hangars are, in front of one or two of them, the track's still there. Well, that was connected to Squires Gate Station because, of course, during that period, so we're talking about the Second World War, everything came by train, didn't it? Similarly at Lytham there was a branch from Wharton Signal Box down to where Stanways is now, and that was to get all the items for the camp that was the USAF at Wharton, their aerodrome, now aerospace. Yeah. But Squires Gate, well, it had camping coaches. Not all the trains stopped there that came along this line, and there were quite a lot of trains, but it was presumably, it's quite early days, it would have been very well used, wouldn't it, when there were no cars.
Not much remains of any original features really. The old bridge, a few mounds, small hidden items dotted along the railway line. Now Peter explains what's to be seen over 100 years later, especially when the upgrades and investments dawned upon this railway.
When the Blackpool and Lytham Railway came, or was it put up in 1873, they took the L&Y and L&W, running as the Preston and Wyre Railway, took over this railway, which is just in those trees, in 1874. And a lot of money was spent then. The two stations at Lytham, if you might say, they built the new one, the present one, connected it up to the line from the old station, the original 1846 station. Like they connected Ray Green with Kirkham by a ribby directly. Such as that was happening, a lot of money was spent. That Keeper's Bridge may have been built then. Now just here, that side, you can walk across the railway, there's a bridge there, which is now, seemingly, the last surviving original structure, because it has to be at least 1863 or 1873, because it's a very old brick arch bridge.
At the top end of the line was Blackpool Hounshill, the former station to Blackpool Central. As a young boy, Peter was keen to learn the lay of the land, the stations and the coastal railways, and to soak up what was to be seen along this vibrant, exciting line.
Right, well, in 1909 at Squires Gate was the first air show. I think it was actually the first air show, certainly the first one in Britain, and that entailed lots of people using the railway and lots of people using the tramway. Don't forget there were no buses and virtually no cars. It was also a race course, wasn't it? Horse race meeting was in the same place.
The remains of a signal post once found at the far end of platform 2 by me at Squires Gate Station, looking south, possibly is titled to show in this map of the layout of 1938. Was this a semaphore signal that served Stony Hill and Squires Gate Station? With many happy events and many happy memories. Peter is a wealth of great knowledge, and he continues to explain the depth of the history of this line and the former running of the first running trains.
But Central, well, it developed into a massive, incredible big place, and I believe the shed is 1885. We understand before that the loco shed for this line was at Lytham in the goods yard, where it ended up in Station Road. Fire stations there now. The Blackpool and Lytham Railway, fascinating story is that there was at Lytham terminus there was one track and one siding at one point, and when the train was coming towards Lytham, supposedly, the fireman uncoupled the coaches, the engine went ahead in the siding and the coaches freewheeled into the station. That's the story that is told. Then the engine merely reversed out, went on the other end and went back to Blackpool. Blackpool Central, well, in winter it was a dead place, just a few trains and a few passengers. That's why it ended up closing. In summer, even in 1964, the last summer, it was very busy. There were lots and lots of specials and Saturday trains, and the date, my brain thinks the 28th of September 1964 was the last great day, when there were, I think, 2 weekend illumination specials from Aberdeen and 10 from Glasgow area, and they all went out on the Monday afternoon. So some of us were on the flat roof of the old electricity works where Frank Dean went. We had permission to go there, taking pictures of the trains leaving in the afternoon. One loco was ex-works and one engine was very nicely cleaned up. That was 46160 Queen Victoria's Rifleman, the last time a Royal Scot came to Central, which arrived. It came on Friday evening or Friday night, and it was on shed and observed on Saturday in a disgusting condition. So my late friend Paul Claxton and myself took it upon ourselves, not for the first time, to clean it. So when it went out, it was all painted up and all cleaned, a red nameplate, the lot. And not long after that, there was known to be a rail tour that was going over the Settle on Carlisle, from Carlisle to Leeds. So I worked out which loco it would be and took myself and Bradford to Leeds to watch 46160 arriving on this special train, thinking, and then saying, oh, by the way, we only ever cleaned one side, we only cleaned the side we were going to photograph, and never did. So I went and looked at the loco and looked around the other side and to observe it was clean. So I thought, well, they only had to clean one side, didn't they? So that's why they used this loco, but I'd already worked that out.
Apart from Lytham Station being the only surviving station of the original railway, further up the line towards Blackpool Central on Lytham Road was Blackpool South Shore Station. a moderate-sized wooden-built station with platforms and the like. South Short Railway Station was originally the only intermediate station on the Blackpool and Lytham Railway when it opened in 1863. In 1903 it was renamed as Blackpool Lytham Road, and in the same year the Express Martin line from Kirkham was built to a new Waterloo Road railway station at this junction with the Lytham line. The new station was just 300 yards north of Lytham Road. The station, its days was numbered, closing in 1916. The station building was pulled down, and like many of its sister stations was disused and destined for scrap. But unlike the others that were demolished and lost, Blackpool Lytham Road station building was carefully dismantled and rebuilt about a mile away, and it's still here today. Now a semi-detached house sporting the original roof, the original trim, and one beautiful chimney stack. And this line would have seen tens of thousands of railway workers commit their passion and time to the trains. One retired BR signalman, Jack Harrison, now an author, recalls some of his treasures and frightening moments while he was working on this line.
But I started off at, well, I actually started off between courses at signal school. So they put me at Thornton Crossing for a while, and I run that on my own for about a month, just under a month. And then when I took the last 6 week signal school before Christmas, 78. Moss Side Crossing is a what do you call it? I don't understand what they did with Moss Side. Moss Side was the first place, it was my first real box after signal school, and it's such a tiny little halt, and yet they reopened that and left Fleetwood. That's, you know what I mean? It's just completely, there's no logic to the rail track. It would just be, we used to have a little rush hour. There was 2 Manchester trains coming, what they used to call club trains. And they used to cause a mini, rush hour. And just as these were about to come in, I got struck by lightning, the box. I cleared them steps in about 2 jumps. And just at that time, I then had to open the gates manually. So I had to, each time I had to go down and open the gates, flag them through, and all that, and up and down the box. Just at that, you know what I mean? Of all the times to get struck, but it blew all the relays out. Yeah, it was a hell of a, you could smell the burning. But yeah, I've never cleared a box faster in my life. I did on the South Line. I did Blackpool South as well.
Wow.
And very often you never actually saw a train unless it was on the diagram. You had the track circuit diagram on the wall, well, almost in the ceiling. And depending which platform you brought the trains in, you never actually saw a train all day until like early in the morning, about 6, 7 in the morning. You had that little rush hour again, with the 2 extra Manchesters. And then coming back at tea time, that was the only time you saw a train on one of the platforms. And then you only saw like the front end of it. As you go over the bridge on Waterloo Road, you had the station on your right hand side, but on ground level the signal box was on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah. Like other lines across the country, this line was once designated to be totally removed had it not been for the hard-working community fighting for its survival. Another local enthusiast and photographer, Paul Nettleton, recalls some of its best moments and explains why he became heavily involved in saving this railway, bringing it up to its modern-day purpose.
I'm the chairman of the Blackpool and Fylde Rail Users Association. Day-to-day interest is to promote the local railway scene That's both the Blackpool North to Preston and Blackpool South to Preston routes. Since Blackpool North was upgraded, it really tends to look after itself these days, so we concentrate primarily now on trying to get the best use out of the Blackpool South line. And without doubt the jewel in the crown, certainly during the season, is Blackpool Pleasure Beach Station, that attracts a lot of passengers. But basically the line over the last few years has become busier and busier, and the one thing that is really constricting everything at the moment is that it's just a single track from Kirkham North Junction to Blackpool South, and you can only get an hourly service down, which really is now a long 12-mile siding, and we desperately do need a passing loop to be put in. But going back in time, of course, Blackpool South was not the end of the line. The track used to go through to Blackpool Central, and in those days Blackpool attracted a heck of a lot of excursion traffic, both for day trippers and towards the autumn the illumination traffic as well. So Blackpool's season started at Easter, and it finished the last day of the illuminations, and the amount of traffic that Blackpool Central handled was absolutely phenomenal, and at its peak it handled that many passengers. It was the equivalent of evacuating the town and then latterly repopulating it. So you can imagine the amount of people milling around the station, and of course, humans being humans, they needed to relieve themselves occasionally. And my father always told me on more than one occasion, because he used to work at Central, that the amount of revenue that the toilets turned over was enough to pay for the rates on the station building, which in those days, of course, it literally was spend a penny. So some poor porter had to carry all these pennies to the booking office to count them out. But you can imagine, 14 platforms, and it was basically divided into two. You had 6 platforms for your day-to-day services like Blackpool Londons, Manchester Victorias and Liverpools and what have you, and then the other 8 platforms were there for the excursion traffic. And the beauty of the track layout at Central was it was an absolute dream from an operational point of view, from the signalling point of view. You could get 2, 3, 4 trains in and out without the blink of an eye, basically. Blackpool Central, I think, was about 120 levers, and it was massive, and I think it had 2 signalmen at all times, plus a signal lad to record all the train movements. So it must have been a train spotter's paradise in those days. And certainly I know for a fact that just further out away from the coast at Kirkham, they used to record the most amount of traffic in a day, and it was something like June 1936. The box handled over 650 trade movements, in a 24-hour period. I don't think Network Rail could do it these days. But yeah, you can just imagine what Blackpool was really like. And so now we're left, certainly on the South Fylde Line, we're just left with that single track, which, like I've said, it's very popular, especially during the season. And in fact, during the winter, you've got people using it for commuter services through to Manchester and Liverpool and maybe beyond, but it's that hourly service that we need to
Not many features survive the Grand Central Station at the Blackpool end. Some exposed platform and the odd blue railway wall. Most recently, the old toilet block was demolished and replaced with a modern facility. A part of the station without its own tale to tell. Selecting some of his best images, Paul showcases his best photographs and gives us a little detail of why these images hold so dear to his railway related heart.
Right, okay, well, photograph 1, and that shows a class 37, or to be precise a 37-4, which is 37-407, which just happened to be named Blackpool Tower. And it was during the relaying of the track along the South Fylde Line, where it was closed for a period of 4 weeks, and they renewed everything, ballast, sleepers and track, and so eventually the ballast trains had to come down, and lo and behold, somebody, I don't know, from the operating side of things decided, oh, it'd be very appropriate to send this engine down. And it's just purely coincidental, I thought, because I was out with the camera, I was taking photographs like there's no tomorrow, and it was before the internet really got going, and it's just purely coincidental when I was stood on Harriside Bridge, I thought, oh, that's a 37 coming down here. Ooh, that's more than a 37, it's our 37, you know. So yes, I was very pleased with that. Now, moving briefly on to photograph 2, if you look in the background of photograph 1, you can see some heavy equipment on Squires Gate Bridge demolishing what was left of the station. And in those, before, well, in the early days you used to have the booking hall on the bridge along with the shop, and the shop had for a time a bank in it, I think, and then latterly it was a record library, but then of course things went downhill and it was never used anymore, so if it's not being used, we'll demolish it. Item 3, or photograph 3, shows Lytham when the old station building had been laying dormant for many years, and it was lucky to survive, I think, really. Note of course that it's double track through there, so both platforms were in use, and of course now fortunately it was saved, and it's now the station tavern where you can get a good brew or a pint or something to eat, and it's quite nice, especially a summer's day when you can sit out and just enjoy watching people go by. Photograph 4, now that was something, the opening of the Pleasure Beach station, and the money that the most amount of money came from the Pleasure Beach themselves, because in those days Geoffrey Thompson was the owner, and Geoffrey liked his railways. In fact, he had a railway in his back garden, from what I understand. But the majority of the money, the funding, came from the Pleasure Beach, plus a little bit from Blackpool Borough Council, and I think Lancashire County chipped in as well. But it's there. Our friendly pacer was doing the opening ceremony, and then for a sit-down meal, so that was quite pleasant. And ever since, of course, it's attracted a lot of custom. I would note, of course, that you've got the lattice footbridge there, which has been replaced by something less desirable, let's just put it like that. We could do with having that lattice bridge back, I think. Photograph 5. Now then, this is Sintan Station, just after the building had been finished off, and the only way of delivering your desks and everything is by train, of course. And in those days there was just enough gap in the timetable for a class 127 parcels unit to come down the branch with all these bits and pieces, filing cabinets and everything, and quickly throw them off onto the platform and then beetle back off to Preston. And I noticed Barry Cole is stood in the doorway there, the unit. Now Barry, he was the station manager at Blackpool North for a number of years, a proper railwayman, and he was overseeing what was happening. Good man. And then finally, photograph 6 shows and I still can't figure out. This is an excursion that went down to London, and it went down to, I think it was St Pancras, not Euston, but it went a peculiar way, that I do know. But there's a 47 at the Preston end and a class 25 at the buffer stop end at the Waterloo Road end. But of course, notice in that picture you still got the booking hall on top of Waterloo Road Bridge, which sadly of course is no longer. And when they demolished the booking hall, nobody realised that part of the girder work underneath it formed part of the bridge as well. So the bridge became less than stable, let's put it like that. But yeah, any memories. And of course Blackpool South doesn't see any excursion traffic anymore. In fact, Blackpool North only sees 1 or 2 a year, which is a sad state of affairs really.
Today the line stations all have volunteers, a group of volunteers who are in partnership with Community Rail Lancashire that look after the line, cleaning the platform. Planting flowers are some of the tasks and activities that they achieve with their spare time. The chair of St Anne's and Squires Gate Station, Tony Ford, fondly remembers one story of his father who visited and slept in the most strangest but idyllic of places.
I mean, I know my dad used to come and cycle to Blackpool and used to sleep in the carriages, in the carriage sidings, yeah, and cycle back the next day.
Oh, brilliant. Oh,
and I used to go train spotting with him.
So, a vibrant line with thousands of tales to tell, secrets to give and memories to cherish. So much to say about this line. I planned up making another film about it, but listening and learning about my local line and sharing it with you from the mouths of those who love it is an absolutely amazing experience, meeting these wonderful creative people who all have a different dimension when they talk about it. And learning about Blackpool South Station, the building that survived, to the local stop movement signalled by Jack, this film has only touched the top of the iceberg for this line. And if I was to take anything away from this forgotten secret, is this little area, the one that I'm sat on now. For decades I've played on this mound of sand, I've eaten here, I've watched the air show from here, I've even brought my children, my family here to play and watch the trains across the tracks. Only just to learn recently that this mound of sand, adjacent to here is another mound of sand, was once a brick footbridge over the railway, erected to carry light foot and cart traffic from the east of the area to the beach. This was once the pathway before the railway was ever dreamt of, the remains of Keeper's Bridge.